Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today, it's actually Easter, but I did a ham recently, so didn't really want to do ham again. You can see that up there. It was on the grill, sort of smoked-ish, grilled with a glaze. It was delicious. Um, but I took this brisket out, and we were gonna smoke it, but the only recipe I could find in any of my books for brisket was for a huge, like full 12-pound brisket. And I think this is mostly just the flat, and it's like 4.5 pounds. And so I found this recipe in Allison Roman's book, Nothing Fancy. So for today, we're going to be making soy braised brisket with caramelized honey and garlic. And I don't know who I'm feeding besides my family, but probably mostly just my family, but it's a lot of meat, but it will make good leftovers. So to get started, I have already salted and peppered the brisket very recently. She says to do this as far ahead as possible. Between 5 minutes and 48 hours is great. Mine was still sort of defrosting in the refrigerator until like 5 minutes ago. So it is now salted on the two biggest sides. And I've got, this is my largest heavy bottomed Dutch oven. It's going to be a challenge to get this in here now. It will shrink up a lot as it cooks, and it will eventually fit just fine. But I had this one, or I have an oval shaped one, and it's just not very oval shaped. I got an oval shaped one to do better for like chuck roasts. Those fit nicely in there, but I think this won't. So we're gonna go with the round one. We're gonna do our best. I've got that heating up at medium-high heat. It's getting pretty hot, so we're going to put it in fattiest side down, which I think here's the top side. This is supposed to be trimmed of, fat trimmed to fat. It didn't have a ton on it, so hopefully that will be okay. So we're gonna, I don't know, get that as brown as we can in this Dutch oven. And I am mostly not going to be talking while it sizzles, but I'm going to be preparing all the rest of the ingredients we're going to need when this is done. She said it'll take about 8 to 10 minutes per side, so we're just going to let it go. I did neglect to say there was some vegetable oil. I use grapeseed oil. She says use canola oil, whatever. Neutral flavored vegetable oil in the pot so it doesn't stick. It's starting to smell pretty brown. So I'm going to see if it's nice and browned on the bottom. Yes. So I'm going to, at least brown, maybe a little black, but not, I'll take dark brown. I'm going to back off that heat just a little bit. Now, she does say to, make sure you kind of press it down to occasionally to make sure all of the surfaces that you want are in contact with the bottom. So, doing that. All right, I'm going to check it now. I don't know how long the second side has been. It's nice and brown. I'm going to kind of get the other largest edges brown a little bit. Trying to do so without burning the bottom of my pan too much. Okay, I'm going to turn this off so hopefully it doesn't burn on the bottom. And just use that residual heat there. I think, as you can tell, I think it's got a really good sear on most of it. So I'm going to let this kind of sit on its side here with the heat off. And that kind of prop it up while I make sure I have everything I need for the next step. All right, so now that it's kind of cooled off a little bit and probably taken on as much color as this is going to get, I'm going to take this out and put it on my plate, and you can see it has already shrunk up quite a bit. That's hot. I'm going to use these, and we're going to pour out all of the leftover oil and rendered fat. We're not going to worry about wiping it out, but we just want to get most of it out of there. And get a spoon. Let me get this. Okay. I've got most everything measured out except for a couple things. We're going to return the pan to medium-high heat, and we're going to caramelize the honey. So I'm going to put it back to the, like, a little bit below what it was before, because I just don't want to immediately burn this. And I'm going to put the honey that I've measured. These are awesome, by the way, if you haven't heard me extol their virtues. These plunger style, great for honey, peanut butter, sour cream, things like that. All right, turn it back up. Only about 2 minutes, but we want to make sure it caramelizes. It's hard to tell because the bottom of the pan is kind of brown, but she says you can tell by the smell. It smells like a rich, deep caramel. All right, I'm gonna turn it down a little. Now that it's all bubbly, I'm gonna set a timer for 2 minutes just so I maybe don't burn it too much. It smells like honey mostly to me right now. Certainly doesn't smell burnt, but it's definitely picking up a lot of the brown that was on the bottom of the pot from the meat, which, by the way, smelled absolutely delicious. Brown beef. There's our 2 minutes. So I'm going to reduce the heat to medium-low because I really don't want this to burn. Yeah, it's starting to smell caramelized. So now I'm adding some onion, the yellow onion that's just been quartered. And these are garlic bulbs that I have halved sort of across the equator, as one of the chefs says, with the paper and everything on it, which is absolutely fine. And then we're going to add cinnamon, bay leaves. We have some star anise. And then these are chiles de arbol. They're dried chilies. I got mine from Penzeys. You can, if your market has a Mexican section, you might be able to find them. In my area, Walmarts tend to have a lot of different dried chilies. And then I happen to have these. I thought I didn't have them, but if you don't have them, you can just use some red pepper flakes. I hope it doesn't end up too spicy, but I don't think so. It's going to be a lot of stuff. So now we're going to cook these until they take on some color, 2 to 3 minutes, start to soften a little bit. I'm not going to stir it the whole time because I'm not as concerned with everything burning at this point. So that's good. And I can put this over here because everything's going together. It's fine. I start to smell the spices, and it smells so good. While that's going, I'm going to tell you about some of the other ingredients. This is rice wine vinegar. I'm going to add since I just don't want to dirty another dish, I've measured that, and now I'm going to add fish sauce to it just so I can put it all in at once. And I think I have to use a new one, so this is going to be super fun. But I did make sure we had it. Buy a new one. I've had the worst time with opening these kinds of jars lately. Okay, this it doesn't. The ones with the like pull tab, I've had the worst time recently. All right. There we go. We also are going to have low sodium soy sauce, so I've got that in here. And chicken or beef stock. I do not have an, well, I can't say that. Beef or chicken broth. I happen to have a container of store-bought chicken stock, which is what I'm going to use. I don't have any beef. I don't have enough homemade beef. I do have some home canned chicken broth, but I'm going to let that hang out for a little while longer. I'm just curious how it's going to go. Everything is sort of starting to soften. I'm gonna let it go maybe another minute. All right, we're gonna call that good for this stage. And now I'm gonna add the liquid. So all of this chicken stock. Trust me, this is gonna have plenty of time to cook. This is a long braise. Here we go. I'm just gonna try to scrape up anything that's on the bottom, but I think the honey did a good job of getting most of that off. Try not to be too messy. This is the vinegar and the fish sauce. And this is the soy sauce. There we go. So now we're going to nestle our beef back into the pot. I think we're going to go the other way up. I think that was the fatty side. Sure, we're going to go fatty side up. It doesn't really matter at this point. But we're trying to make sure that this is at least 75% covered, which it definitely is. And she does not say to raise the heat here, but later she says to lower it. So we're going to try to bring it to a simmer before we put the lid on. So I've turned the heat up closer to medium high. If your brisket is not at least 3/4 covered, if you cannot, make sure it's 3/4 covered, you can add more stock or water to it to do so. Ours is fine. I did end up turning this back up to medium high, and it's only just now starting to come to a simmer. So I think from when we started this whole process, it's been about an hour. So this is an extra hour on top of the 3 to 3.5 hours that she says to cook this. Ours might take a little bit longer. It's a little bit bigger than the recipe calls for, only by like half a pound. It'll be fine. But it just, we'll have to check it. She says we're going to cook this with the lid on, a gentle simmer on the stove for 3 to 3.5 hours. So at about 3 hours, I will check it. I try not to take the lid off. That'll just lengthen the time that it's going to take you to, cook this. But don't check it often. So there we go. We're starting to get a little boiling around the edges. So I'm going to call that good for our start to simmer. We'll put the lid on. We're going to turn it back down to medium low. And I'm going to make sure that it's not boiling. We're going to make sure that it's sort of at a good simmer. In fact, I might leave it at a 5 for right now, just until, like, which is a medium, just to get it completely warmed through, because on my stove I know that if I turn it down immediately it stops simmering, or stops boiling pretty quickly. It does have some boiling, so I'm going to let it go at at this, but eventually it's probably going to be at a medium low, but you want it to be at a gentle simmer for the 3 to 3.5 hours. So when that time is up, we'll show you what we need to do. We'll let you know how long it takes. It's about 2 o'clock here. So I expect it'll be, 5:30, 6 o'clock before this is ready. But once this is ready, we're pretty much done. So there's a little bit more to do, but not too much. Also, we're going to let this just cool. This is the extra oil and grease. And when it's all cool, I'm going to just put it in the trash. We don't need it. So we will show you what we need to do to finish this up in just a minute. We are almost at our 3 hours, and I realized just now that I forgot an ingredient because I was not fully prepared when I started this. I was supposed to add ginger with all of the other vegetables, so I've got some sliced ginger. I'm just going to throw it in now because my brisket is not done at 3 hours. Sorry for the awful camera work here. I'm just, I was going to show you, let me switch hands. This is nowhere near impossibly tender. Like the outside, maybe I could shred. We're not going to shred it. We're going to slice it. So we don't want it to be super falling apart, but we do want it to be tender. Anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that I forgot the ginger, so I'm throwing it in now, and hopefully everything will be okay. And I'm going to probably let it go for another hour at least at this point. So we'll let you know how long it takes in just a second. It's been an extra hour and about 10 minutes. I think it's done enough. I think it's fine. Like I said, we don't want to shred it. We're going to try to slice it. So our garlic, no. Our ginger has only been there for a little over an hour, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I ended up with my stove at about a 2.4, which is pretty close to medium low, I guess. And I've been checking it a little bit. Oops. And it's definitely gotten a little floppier, and you can kind of see the fibers separating when you bend it on the bottom. So we're going to take this out and put it on this cutting board. I'm going to let it cool just a little bit, and then we're going to try to slice it against the grain, which is kind of sideways. So, oh, I forgot to put just kind of that way, I believe. So it'll be like that. You can strain this broth because you're going to serve it with the broth. I am not going to, and you can just pick out the bits you don't want to eat later. So that's what my plan is. I'm going to leave this broth on probably low heat. Hot. The lid is very hot. While this is sitting there for a minute, I don't think we have to rest it or anything, but no, we don't really have to rest it. But while this is resting a little bit before I slice it, I'm going to be making some rice noodles to serve this over. Now, I had these just sitting in my cabinet, and she says to serve these over rice noodles. So I had them, wanted to use them up, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be cooking these just according to package directions. And then we're going to serve the meat and the juice over top, some of the braising liquid. It'll be a little bit like a soup, a little bit. We'll see how it turns out. These only take about 5 minutes to cook, so that's good. Oh yeah, there's one other thing. After that, we're going to add a little bit of a salad on top. Really just, I've got some sliced green onions, could be chives. I've measured those out. I didn't measure these so well, but all this is cilantro. And I'm just going to kind of fill this bowl with it. And we can always use more if we want. Can use those. You can use those with their tender stems, as she says. You can be as picky as you like about that. I just kind of picked them out, picked the leaves off, and if some of the stems stayed attached to the leaves, it was fine. We are going to season this with some kosher salt. Turn that down a little bit, and some black pepper. And that is it. We're going to kind of toss this together to get the onions incorporated. And we're going to serve this on top of our meat and noodles. And that will be it. I'm going to put this to the side. Get my noodles cooking. And these, I'm supposed to stir them the whole time. I don't make a bunch of rice noodles. I think I'm going to use my tongs. Oh, shoot. No, I didn't have a timer there. Ha ha ha. Thought I had another timer on there, but I didn't. I have it on the digital assistant. So I'm going to cook these according to package directions, and then I'm going to slice because these can be served warm or cold. And we're going to cook these and then rinse them in cold water so they will stop cooking. So rice noodles do not take long to cook. Just finished the noodles. So it's been sitting for about 5 minutes. I'm going to slice this. She doesn't say how thickly or thinly to slice it, but the picture has about, I don't know, 1/2 inch slices. So that is approximately what I'm going for. And then we're supposed to put it back into the braising liquid and serve. I think it'll be nice and tender. I hope it'll be awfully delicious. Okay, here we go. Looks like the direction of the grain switched over here at the end, but that's okay. Pretty good. All right. I'm going to plate this up, show you what it looks like, and then we'll let you know what we think. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make soy-braised brisket with caramelized honey and garlic from Alison Roman's Nothing Fancy. And I made this mostly because I had a brisket in the freezer that I wanted to use, and it was kind of a spring kind of day. I didn't want to take forever to cook it on the smoker, so we made this. And I think we really liked it. I ended up doing something a little bit wrong. I missed the ginger. I think I didn't put the ginger in when I should have. All told, I think it was a little bit fiddly. There are a lot of ingredients that go into the sort of broth that you cook this in. A lot of spices and things. I had most of them already. I didn't really have to go looking for anything, mostly because I have needed to go look for it for other recipes. The arbol chilies, I had those because of another recipe, and I had the star anise pods from another recipe. So those things that are particularly not in a standard American pantry always, unless you use them for, you know, a more ethnic dish, because that's not something that you normally use in most standard American cuisine. That could be a difficult thing. It does take a long time to cook because it's a large piece of meat and it needs to braise on low heat. I think we do this was done on the stove, I believe. Yeah, low heat, really, really, really long time. That takes a long time, but it doesn't need anything particularly difficult to do that. We enjoyed it. The broth was good with it. I think I served mine over some noodles. You could serve it with rice. You could serve it however you like. You could not use the broth and save that for something else if you wanted to. I don't know why you would do that. Has a tiny bit of spice from the chilies, but it's really a sort of back of the throat kind of spice, not an immediate blow your mouth out kind of spice. So that's the kind of spice I generally like a little bit better, where it's doesn't make me unable to taste other things. And I did really, really enjoy the sort of herb salad on top. I thought it was great. It was a lot, the way I did it, with the noodles that I used reminded me a little bit of like a ramen or a pho with that long cooked broth and the cilantro on top. You could also use mint or basil, whatever you have, whatever you like would be great, but we use cilantro, one of my favorites. Anyway, I really liked it. I would certainly do it again, but it's definitely going to be a later in the year, fall, winter type of dish. We're heading into the hot grilled food season, so won't be making it for a while, but if you make it, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you've enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.